Hello, the viewers of Civ Space TV. Welcome to the 6th edition of the Community Show webinar. We've had a couple of discussions looking at several areas. We've looked at things to do with COVID. We've looked at the role of citizens in the development of this country. We've looked at the government's programs like Myoga and how much they contribute and what success they've been over the years. So today I want to look at something that is in the news right now, and that is the closure of NGOs by the Bureau. So that is the topic we're going to have this, for our discussion today, and I hope that we have a very meaningful discussion. On our part, we have assembled a very eminent team of panelists that will help us throw a lot of light into this topic. We pick people from the community whose work have been affected in one way or another by the NGOs. We've picked participants who work with NGOs, and we have a government representative who monitors these NGOs so that we can get their views. So the panel is made up of Amanyisa Zadock. He joins us from the West Anchorage Civil Society Forum, or WACSOF. That's the abbreviation, as a program officer. Then we are joined also by Mr. Burora Herbert Anderson. Anderson is making his second appearance on this show. He is the Deputy Resident City Commissioner, RCC of Nakawa Division, right here in Kampala. We are also joined by Mr. Mushambo Kinyoro, who is from Youth Line Forum. And last but not least, we are joined by our good friend Zawedde Hasinah, who is a beneficiary of women's NGOs. So let me introduce the topic we're having today further. On the morning of Friday, 20th, 2021, this very year, a couple of organizations in Uganda, operating either as non-government organizations or company limited by guarantee, received a not so pleasant letter from the Bureau, signed by Mr. Stephen Okello, the Executive Director of the NGO Bureau. He categorized the group, the NGOs and organizations in his letter in 3 different folds. The first organizations were accused of operating without valid operational permits issued by the Bureau. The second were accused of failing to file annual returns and, quote unquote, to meet other compliance requirements of the Bureau. The final group of companies, the final group of organizations, I won't call them NGOs, they are companies limited by guarantee for that matter, were accused of operating without being registered as NGOs. And the letter says that they are required to be registered as NGOs to operate in this country. Different as the companies, as the organizations were, and different as the accusations were, the fate and punishment for them was the same: indefinite closure, at least for now, so that they can put their books in order according to the Bureau and fulfill the requirements that were asked of them. The relationship between government and NGOs in Uganda, or organizations, I'll keep using that word instead, over the last couple of years has been rather frosty. We first saw a couple of laws that directly affect the activities of NGOs and organizations of that kind coming into place. The NGO Act of 2016, the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2013, the Public Order Management Act, the Computer Misuse Act, among others. We also know that in 2017, the police raided and sealed off the premises of Action Aid and the offices of the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, or GLIS, in Tinda. The offices were cordoned off, and some of the staff held by police for days. The associate director of GLIS, that is the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, Mr. Godwin Toko, says that to this very day, he doesn't know why the raid was done because he was not given an explanation. He says some of their property was taken and are yet to be returned. We've seen a number of organizations accused of such damning claims like engaging in money laundering. We've seen them accused of engaging in actions that tantamount to treason. And the president on his part has recently said these organizations are working with enemies of the state to fund riots, to rig elections, to beat women, and to cause, quote unquote, mayhem in the country. However, it's important to say this: not a single organization has been convicted successfully on charges that have been levied against them. Despite the arrests, not a single employee of these organizations has been convicted of those charges, be it money laundering, be it corruption, be it treason, like the state likes to say. In fact, many times the charges are not even brought and dropped if brought at any one point. Like Mr. Nicholas Opio was arrested, he's still facing court, but we know that when they raided the offices of Greece, for instance, no charges were pressed on anybody, not even Greece as a company. So it's upon this background, ladies and gentlemen, the dear esteemed viewers of Safe Space TV, that we are going to assess the recent push and shove between NGOs and government and what this means for the people at the grassroots levels of our communities down there. Without further ado, allow me to put our first question to Mr. Amanyisa, and this is going to help us understand what NGOs are. So, Mr. Amanyisa, in your own words, in your own understanding, what are NGOs? What are the kind of activities they engage in? Just how important are they to the ordinary Ugandan at the grassroots? And since you run a forum that is a collection of different entities, can you tell us what that means for you as someone that engages in this kind of work? What does the push and shove between government and NGOs mean? But briefly. So please tell us, introduce for us the concept of NGOs in Uganda.
Thank you, Godwin Toko, and other participants in this conversation. I first of all greet you, and I introduce myself as Zadock Amanyisa from West. In the Ugandan context, NGOs are allowed to operate, but in a legal way, as dictated by the National Bureau for NGOs. And of course, this is under the Ministry of Internal Affairs. The NGO Bureau is a regulatory entity that is mandated to monitor, regulate, and coordinate the activities of all NGOs. That's what I know. And that's why, that's what we have known over time. But just like it happens in almost all governments in Africa, NGOs have, over the past years, been seen as enemies, even though they are seemingly allowed to operate. Here in Uganda, I understand the regulations provide for a wide number of controls and obligations that CSOs have to meet. That is, if they are to operate in the country. And also here in Uganda, there are a number of regulations and under different laws, such as the NGO Act 2016, the Companies Act, Trustee Incorporation Act, etc. You can name them. The NGO Act 2016 came into force in March 2016. As far as I know, and it places a number of obligations on NGOs working in Uganda. The law applies to a host of NGOs, including local or indigenous NGOs, foreign NGOs, community-based organizations, trustees, and companies whose work or focus is on providing voluntary, not for-profit services to the community in this country. Here at Western Ankole Civil Society Forum, we are a subnational platform for citizens organizations operating in Ankole sub-region, Western Uganda. We were established in 2005 as a network of citizen organizations and registered in 2006 with the Uganda National NGO Board as a non-government organization. We operate in Uganda as Western region, like I said in the beginning, with a programmatic presence in districts of Bushenyi, Shema, Rubirizi, Metoma, Bweju, Barara, Ibanda, Isinjiro, Ntungamo, Chirushura, Kazo, and Rwampara. Our head office is located in Bushenyi Township. This is Bushenyi Shaka Municipality, Bushenyi District. We have a diverse membership, including legally constituted NGOs, CBOs, and other CSO networks grassroots citizens organizations, village self-help groups, women rights groups, youth and PWD associations. We also have faith-based organizations, and we have a membership of 93 active members. By joining WACSOF family, these organizations meet a number of obligations. They also have different benefits that accrue to the members. These, among others, include participation in General Assembly and other membership platforms. They have an opportunity to participate in the governance structures of the forum, including board and district coordination committees through established procedures. We allow them access information. We allow them access information in our resource center. They involve and participate in collective initiatives in communities. We also provide a network or a platform for them to network, reflect, share information, and learn. So our activities include civil society strengthening citizen agency. We help them in doing activities with the defending civic space and freedoms, and many other things. That's what I can say for the beginning, Mr. Godwin Toko.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move to Mr. Mushambo. Just how important is the work of an organization like Youth Line Forum in communities? We know that the most vulnerable Ugandans most times out in the communities, they are deep down. So how much of importance is your work to them? And if, let's say by any chance that the work of NGOs in this country has stopped suddenly, how much of an impact, negative impact for that matter, will the communities feel suddenly?
Well, for the record, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mushambo Kinyoro Henry, and I'm a communications practitioner. I am privileged and I am glad to be part of the panel today to demystify the matter brought before us. If I can give I think I normally give this simple reminder of sorts. Yes, please.
Let me just ask Mr. Amanyisa to turn off his camera and microphone. Continue.
Okay, please. So I was saying that normally I give this simple reminder to people to understand where non-government organizations came from, and the existence of non-government and the need for non-government organizations is dated back in the times of the World War, especially when the World War was now to an end and there was need to reinstate, to refurnish, and to refurbish countries. It was publicly noted that governments could not carry on that responsibility single-handedly, and that they needed the hand of non-government organizations in areas of strengthening the health department, strengthening development, structural development, strengthening human capital development. And to that extent, here in Uganda, the importance of non-government organizations has also not ceased to be in those relations. Therefore, non-government organizations act as a watchdog to government on behalf of the citizens. They endeavor to see that government fulfills its responsibility to the debt. They ensure that government also, when they have implemented projects, they ensure that there is accountability, which is a mandate on the state and a mandate for citizens to seek for that mandate. So part of that is what the NGOs are set to do. However, also apart from that, non-government organizations fill the gap where government is not able to reach. So non-government organizations and civil societies, in a sort, are a far-reaching hand of the state, a far-reaching hand of the government, where they are failed to reach in terms of education, in terms of employment, in terms of having a sound health system, in terms of having a population that is alert, having a population that has attained a certain level of civility. So to that extent, when NGOs are not accepted to operate in those precincts, then that means that we disadvantage the citizens of Uganda in those areas, because anybody here can agree with me that the government, even with its very strong structures, it is not able to reach very far. Some of these organizations are community-based organizations, and they best understand the problems of those communities, which certain structures of government may not appreciate very well. Non-government organizations also are a source of information for the policy-making processes. So when government is looking out for alternative policy, the best place they go to, that they should go to anyway, should be the non-government organizations, since they deal directly with communities that are affected. And by nature, policies derive from problems. Policy statements, they become law. And so that is how important non-government organizations are. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a very elaborate perspective, the working of NGOs and their role in society. So I want to move to our good friend Zawedde. Zawedde, kino kibuuzo kicho, ssemateeka wa Uganda agamba nti abakyala n'abaami balina okuweebwa ekitiibwa ekimu, nti engeri gy'oyisa omusajja engeri gy'olina okuyisa n'omukazi, mu kitiibwa, awatali kunyigirizibwa, awatali kubonerezebwa. Ate tulabye nnyo bino ebitongole ebimu nga bigenda mu byalo eyo okukolagana n'abakazi n'abakyala, oba yimusa oba yamba mu ngeri emu oba endala. Kati mbadde njagala otukubire ekifaananyi, otubulire buno obutongole, buno organizations, emirimu gyabwe giyambye batya abakyala eyo ddala mu byalo, abakazi oba yamba oba yimusa mu ngeri emu oba endala. Kyembadde njagala otubulire.
Neyanzizza okumpa omukisa guno. Erinnya n'eddoboozi Zawedde Hasinah, Chairperson wa Wandegeya Women Traders and Vendors Cooperative Society Limited. Mu butuufu NGOs nze mba saagala nakuwulira kizikwatako, kubanga mpulira ennaku yonna singa bagambye nti nno tezirina kye zikoze, bannange zitukoledde ffe abakyala aba wansi. Nze ndi mukyala mutembeeyi, mbeera ku ground n'endaba abantu embeera gye bayitamu. Mu butuufu singa tezaali NGOs kujja mu bulamu bwaffe, nange naalibadde sirabikako, nange naalibadde sobola kuvaayo ne njogerako ko eri abantu oba eri gavumenti okubaako kyewulira nebaako kyetukolera. NGOs zituyambye mu bintu ebisinga obungi. Ffe twali twaggwamu dda essuubi naye kati essuubi lyaffe lyakomawo lwakuba NGOs zituwa skills, batusomesa okumanya enkwata y'amaka, okwawula nti omulimu n'awaka, okumanya nti omwami n'omukyala balina kuyisibwa kyenkanyi kubanga ffenna tuli bantu. NGOs zituyambye mu byenfuna. Ffe twali tetumanyi kusevinga nga bwe tufuna akasente tukalya konna ne kaggwawo, kyova olaba twali twalemererwa okuvaayo gye tuli. Nze siina na kye njogera ku NGOs. Ebitongole ebyo byajja mu bulamu bwaffe naye tulaba ng'abalaba Katonda azze mu bulamu bwaffe. Mu butuufu twali twasoberwa dda nga twalemererwa naye kati tusitudde eddoboozi lyaffe ne tulyolekeza eri gavumenti naye nga tuyita mu bitongole ebyo nga bye bituwa support. Bitutraininga mu skills. Twali tetumanyi na bya mikono, nga tetumanyi nti omuntu yeeyimirizaawo atya, omuntu agoba atya obutabanguko okuva mu maka ne gy'akolera ne mu makubo, omuntu ayinza kubeerawo atya. Naye NGOs baavaayo ne bajja ne batusomesa okugeza ng'ebitongole Shiha Network, Femfort Uganda, Uganda Women Network, tuyina CCG gye ndiko kati ku mukutu kwenjogerera. Tugyebaza kubanga okuvaayo ne tujja n'eddoboozi lyaffe naffe ne tuwulirwa. Bannange singa si bitongole ebyo, singa tetulina kye tulina, kubanga batuwa support ne tugendako ku ma TV, ne tugendako ku ma radio, naffe ne twogerako eri ensi, naffe ne turaisinga eddoboozi lyaffe ne liwulirwa. NGOs ffe kyetukoledde abakyala aba wansi kirungi nnyo nnyo, era ba NGOs bonna tubeebaza kubanga singa tebaali bo, singa tetuli bulungi mu mbeera eno gye tulimu, twasangibwa nga tuli mu kusoomoozebwa. Okugeza ntunuulira nnyo abakyala abavuddeyo gye tuli nga mukyala Hara okuva mu Shiha Network, omukyala gwe bayita Sanyu Penelope okuva mu Femfort Uganda, abakyala okuva mu Onet nga bwe nakugambye, tulina omukyala Angela Asimwe, Jackie Asimwe okuva mu Civil Source Africa. Bannange mu butuufu nze siina na kye njogera, mpulira obulumi nga mpuliddeko ayogerako NGOs, era jjo nina kannooti ke nasomye naye olunaku nasiibye ndi mulwadde. Kubanga mu butuufu tuladde tutandise ositula embeera zaffe ng'abakyala aba wansi okusobola okukwasaganya omutindo, kubanga luli buli omu kye yasanga nga kye yeekoleranga, naye kati tuli organized nga tuyise mu bitongole ebyo. Tumanyi buli kimu ekigenda mu maaso, ate oba tusobola n'okwerwanako kuba luli twali tumanyi nti nno omukyala owa wansi yeetaba na ddoboozi kwerwanako. Ne mu ssemateeka tugenda ne tusoma obuwaayiro tubutegeera bulungi kati, naye nga tuva mu misomo egyo tubanguddwa aba NGOs. N'abatali ba NGOs nabo bajja ne batukwatako. Mu mbeera eyo NGOs evuddeyo n'omumuli okujja okumulisiza omukyala owa wansi okumanya alina kweyisa atya mu nsi eno, alina kubeera mu mbeera ki. Bannange nze simanyi na kye nnyinza kwogera, simanyi na kye nnyinza kwogera ku NGOs.
Kale enkuwulidde maama, kasita oyogedde tukuwulidde bulungi ensonga zo. Kati ngenda kusaba oggyeko microphone ne video tubuzeeko n'omuntu omulala. Webale nnyo. So I want to turn to you, Mr. Burora Herbert Anderson. First of all, I want to thank you for always being readily available when we call you for some of these discussions. Sad finding someone from government, but it's always a pleasure to have one. So the relation between NGOs of Uganda as of today. We know there was a time the government referred to NGOs as development partners, and there was that stable working relationship. Is this still the case? Has that relationship since died? Are they now like quote unquote jilted lovers? So just tell us, how are things inside?
Hi, Godwin.
Anderson, I'm fine. How are you?
I want to raise their voices towards the level of NGOs. I really recognize personally the contribution of NGOs in communities, and I think they play an important role. However, I think there is a miscommunication that is being tried to, I think, call it propaganda, that is trying to like someone is trying to use it against the situation to make this really look as if this is against NGOs and their operations, as opposed to some vices that are within these NGOs. And it is unfortunate that some people don't recognize or don't want to recognize the challenges that are within the NGOs. They don't want to accept that some people are not living or working up to the expectations or to the standards of the regulator system or part of day-to-day operations, either to NGOs or to government or even to the community. So we must first of all accept and as well, in as much as they are doing a very good job, they have accepting your mandate. Now that is true. NGOs are doing well, like Zawedde, but the only 54 NGOs. So first of all, demystify that it is not an attack on NGOs. It is an attack on devices that are consuming energy. I don't think any NGOs would do. Is wrong and they should not be looked at now. It's trying to raise that Greece, I'm using Greece in respect of all other NGOs, that Greece cannot be held accountable, or that Greece has no questions to answer. Let's not make our organizations angelic in nature or heavens per se. Thirdly, who is going to sit down? Because most of the challenges we see being raised are political challenges. Or some are saying that these are trying to shut down the voices of the people, or they are trying to curtail on the democracy and the freedoms of the people. Yes, you see, freedom is inherent only if it is within the conformity for which it is allowed. Most people have done, their freedoms have turned into crimes, and they have been criminally liable or held liable for that. So if we say that we have unrestricted freedoms that we are trying to raise our voices against, we are trying to raise monsters that will swallow us tomorrow. Even freedoms are restricted. Even freedoms are regulated. Even freedoms have boundaries. So some things you have to be realistic. We cannot be idealistic all the time. To speak, but what you're speaking cannot be realistically practiced. Even you cannot practice it. So I think that it is not about the jilted lava. NGOs, I am an activist. I know what NGOs can bring on the table. NGOs can hold the government accountable. NGOs, like, for example, for the first time, Civics Center for Constitutional Governance is doing what it ought to have done a long time ago, to advocate, which was not the case before. The advocacy before was in political activism. But you see, in as much as our constitution is political, it brings out all our inherent rights. Our freedoms to worship, it is not political. To worship, it is holy, it is godly, it is not political. But it is enshrined in our political system. For me to associate, I may not associate politically, I may associate economically, I may associate. So our constitution, in as much as it is politically framed, it gives freedom and opportunity for non-political players and actors to flourish and to do their job. So when we talk about NGOs closing, NGOs, the law also accepts that an NGO can be closed. It provides for that. What I dissent from is the manner through which it was done, because they ought to have given people opportunity to explain their plight, to explain what they are doing, and to audit them, and also the environment through which they are working in. And what I don't see anywhere, at least I have been anywhere in all these discussions, I have read, I have listened, I have watched, I have done this and that. I don't see anyone who is trying to raise a voice against some of the vices committed by some NGOs. It is true. If your NGO is not involved in money laundering, keep quiet. Yours is not. Don't talk on behalf of others. If your NGO is quiet, yours is doing what is right, don't speak for others. Because not everyone is doing what is right. Some look for loopholes, look for opportunities. So I think it is not about the jilted loving and what. It is about appreciating the terrains under which these things are happening. Some NGOs are not doing what is supposed to be done, and that is for a fact. Me, even if you gave me, I wish they had consulted me for which NGOs are not doing what is right. I would just point out for them, Gundi Negunda are doing what is wrong. So in brief, I don't know if it is brief, but I think these are pertinent and salient issues that we must be giving attention to.
So I want to move on back to Mr. Amanyisa. Mr. Amanyisa, Anderson says, if your NGO is not following the law, if it's not playing according to the rules, it should be closed. And I agree with that. That's actually the position of the law, that there is a law in this land and we should all follow that law. He also says freedoms can be restricted, freedoms can be regulated, and freedoms are not in a vacuum that you can use and abuse the way you want. But what Anderson isn't saying is that this has been coming. Like there was a time, I think in 2019, when government ordered the closure of up to 12,000 NGOs, said they had not registered with it, they had failed to meet a verification exercise that it put in a very short time and gave a very short notice for. I talked of the arrests earlier. We've talked of the laws that have come of recent. So despite what Anderson has said, do you take the view, like some NGO players are taking, that this isn't about the compliance of, on the part of NGOs alone? It is a bigger picture, and that civic space in Uganda is generally shrinking. Is that your view, sir?
Yes, Godwin. Hello. Hello, Godwin.
Yeah, I can hear you clear, loud and clear, sir.
Yes, I like and appreciate Anderson's submissions. And of course, I must say he is entitled to his views. And of course, when you're in the system, there are some things you say, and let me not blame him for that. But sincerely speaking, the civic space in Uganda is shrinking. The recent state actions were and are still so unfortunate and unwarranted. The closing of space, restriction of engagement should not be a point of focus in this part of the century. I don't know if it's because we are still backward, but I've also seen it happen in other countries. And really, I think it shows how the state has kept in its share of denial, because there are some things we cannot do without. We have many millions of Ugandans benefiting from CSO work. We have very many people having their livelihood in NGO and CSO work. Madam Zawedde was here testifying. Now, think of a time when you have taken all that, what happens? Getting back to the NGO Bureau, halting our operations and operations of other 54 CSOs, I think this was so unfortunate. The news hit us here, and the people here were sympathizing with us. They were like, what is happening? What has gone wrong? We've been seeing you work with government. You people, what's wrong? Everyone wants to be here, but we said we are moving on because this is new. The statement was so unfortunate because we saw government officials naming and shaming NGOs without even giving them a fair hearing. One wonders whether some of these agents, I mean government agents, understand how government works. Government doesn't work in newspapers. Government doesn't take everything to the media. If they had issues with us, simple steps should have been taken. For example, if we have not filed returns, which I think is not right, they should have returned to us. At least they should have warned us in advance. I think I must say, this is very wrong. It is very wrong for government officials to pile all this negative energy on the CSO sector, which sector the government calls partners. Imagine what becomes of any relationship where one side is suffocated. It means the relationship will go bad, and this obviously defeats the partnership principle. It did not go well with us. Allow me mention that there is nothing new. We have seen all these things happen. Actually, a lot has happened, not only here in Uganda, in a wide diversity of countries across the globe, including the Western Europe. We have seen the space shrinking. There is narrowing of space, and this time I think they are closing everything completely. And for them, they are like, we can do without CSOs, we can do without NGOs. Mr. Godwin and fellow panelists, the CSOs have had enough, have had their test in Uganda. You saw what happened during the elections. A lot happened. People were not allowed to speak. We did not do enough voter education. Why? Because the government and state machinery were using COVID-19 as a guard to repress people's freedoms. People could not move. And yet for them, they were freely moving. Many times we have been up to defend ourselves, and because, as you know, whenever such happens, everyone with power now stands taller than others to justify their actions. People's freedoms and civil society space has been restricted enough, and we've actually been expecting this. For example, you know, when this COVID came, and you know, online presence had also started widening. We said now that there is COVID, we can actually use this. We can sail through the situation to reach our people via technology, you know, via Facebook and digital communication platforms. But these new spaces have not been spared by the state. The state has imposed its onerous laws to govern the online space. People have been complaining, why don't you open Facebook? Well, what has gone wrong? And you see, this is all wrong. CSOs and NGOs employ thousands of Ugandans directly and indirectly. Everyone knows this. So what happens when all these channels have been broken? What happens when all the ways of communication have been blocked, when they have been suffocated? It is so unfortunate, and we must stand tall and continue saying that the government must put all of this aside. The government must pronounce themselves on this development so that we can move ahead, so that we can move in a proper direction. Let me tell you, Dennis and other participants here, we cannot do without government, and the government cannot do without us. We need each other. So these things of suffocating NGOs, suffocating civic space will not work. To be sincere with you, Mr. Godwin, thank you. Hello?
Okay, thank you very much. I got that. That was a very powerful submission. So I'm going to request that the admin makes Anderson a panelist. He has been an attendant for some time now. Please make him a panelist. So as he does that, let's move to Mr. Mushambo. Mr. Mushambo, when you hear the government accusing NGOs of very serious offenses like money laundering, treason, terrorism, what do you make of these accusations? I know you've been in that space, the NGO space, for some time. You could be honest. I mean, it's still your space, but you can't be honest and tell us that, yeah, I have heard there are things I also suspect. Or do you think all this is hot air and accusations levied by government without any serious, without cogent proof that the truth that something like that is happening?
Thank you very much, Godwin. For the record, I think that all of us have a responsibility to fulfill by NGOs, and also a responsibility to fulfill by the NGO Bureau. Now, it is very regrettable, and I want to say this, that it is regrettable that if there is a civil society, if there is an NGO, if there is any individual whatsoever who is acting contrary to the laws of Uganda, because for us, at least at Youthline Forum, what we stand for is compliance. And we are on record that we have even been implementing a project on having non-government organizations comply, and even enabling and empowering those who do not understand the structures, those who do not understand the procedures of how you become a complying non-government organization in reference to the existing law. We have been trying to empower them with knowledge, to encourage them to come up and get registered, to file their returns as the law requires. So as the Youthline Forum, we are on record on matters of compliance, because we have been helping other people in the field to comply to the same laws. Now, it is very regrettable if there is anybody who is not complying. It is very regrettable if there is anybody that is trying to take advantage of the citizens of Uganda and they are pushing their own agendas. And such people, for us, we do not agree with. We stand for those who are in line with the clear mandate of non-government organizations as stipulated in the laws of Uganda. And that is our responsibility. We have a responsibility to comply under various sections of the law, section 29 in NGOs officially registering, Section 31 that speaks of application for permits, and Section 32 which speaks to renewal of permits. Section 39 that speaks to filing returns and furnishing information to the Bureau and government. Among other laws, we encourage non-government organizations, or even those persons who would love to have non-government organizations. We encourage them so much to be knowledgeable about this law, so that they understand what the governing instrument of the sector is about, how they are supposed to move, how they are supposed to operate. It is very important. If and I think it is Mr. Anderson Burora, the able RCC at least, who said that there are NGOs that are not working to their standard, and I don't want to disagree with them. I don't want to, disagree with him on that point. If there is anybody that is not reaching up to the standard, it is right for the law to act upon them. They need to be identified, and that is the work of government and the state. And they need, and not just to wake up from a dream and start pulling here NGOs here, and maybe intimidate some of them here and there. But it needs to be intentional intelligence to the latter. Get people tried and let it go on record that this organization has been doing this. It has been doing it and collaborating with this person, and these are the results of their collaboration. Because you see, Mr. RCC, we all need to agree that we cannot continue, I don't know which word to use, but we cannot continue speaking of things and then never get back to, and then never get to their back. We have a number of cases that lie in court without a judgment, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. We have a number of people who have been arrested. They have been taken behind the bars. There has been almost no due diligence done to the effect of what they are being accused of. A case in point is Mr. Nicholas Opio. We don't know the fate of that case. Some cases have been taken to court and withdrawn later. And so you look for, even when we are trying to understand the actions being taken by the regulator, you look for their end result intention, and you don't get it because they seem like they are ill-informed on what they are doing. And you see, in the case of this recent one, for the 54 organizations, nobody is saying that non-government organizations should not be accountable. They need to be accountable. If anything, they need to be more accountable than anybody else because of the nature of work that they do. It is also necessary for them to be watched over in and out of season, as Christians say. And so there is no disparity about that. We should not even have a conversation on that one. People have to be accountable, including the NGO Bureau, because I think Mr. Anderson said that NGOs need to keep in mind that there is a big brother watching over them. I totally agree. We must be watched over. But what I don't agree with is the fact that, and these are matters that we have been bringing up. I think it is, I was hosted still on one of the shows of CCG, and I spoke to the fact that the NGO board is not constituted ever since 2016 when the law was passed. The NGO Bureau, which is watching over us, I think it is section 11 of the law, of the NGO Act of 2016, that establishes the existence of, for example, an executive director. And that law clearly stipulates that the executive director falls under the supervision of the board. Now, this is a bureau that is working and it is not being supervised by anybody. Their actions are not being, because the actions of the executive director fall under the supervision and the okaying of the board. But very many years down the road, more than 4 years down the road, that is the reason as to why they do things that are very ill-informed, and that is where the biggest problem is. And just as I complete, you see, the powers of the NGO Bureau lie in section 7 of the NGO Act. And just to tell us which powers the Bureau has and how they are flouting these powers. They're not even using the powers that they have. I do not know where they get some of these ideas. That they co-opt technical officers to deal with specific issues, that they summon and discipline organizations by either warning them, suspending them, exposing them, blacklisting them, revocation of organizations' permits, charging of fees. Now, for me, when I looked at the letter from, of course, on social media, the press release from the NGO Bureau, I looked for a provision that accepts the NGO Bureau to halt operations of NGOs. I could not find one, yet their powers are here. They could have used any of the provisions of section 7, but they chose to. I want to be on record and say that, of course, many people in the civil society have called this a witch hunt. They have called it fighting against NGO bureaus and all. I want to be on record and say, for me, that is not what I call it. And for me, I don't think it is even a witch hunt. Rather, for me, I think it is a matter from ill information. Probably there is somebody who is doing what they did not understand at the NGO Bureau. They have not yet, some people at the NGO Bureau may not have understood their mandate. Some people at the NGO Bureau may not be, I'm looking for a comfortable word to use. They may not be competent, for a lack of a better word. And that is where the problem is. We are not desisting from accountability, but we are asking the NGO Bureau, use the provisions of the law as they exist to be able to watch over NGOs.
Mr. Mushambo, thank you very much. There's a lot of noise where I am, so I'll use this window to speak. And I want to put a question to Anderson. Anderson, you made a very good case for the government's side of the story. And now I want to just understand the fact that not a single individual or an NGO, you know, NGOs are companies limited by guarantee, and as such, they can't be sued in their own names. None of them has successfully been convicted. Does this point to a fact that government, does this show that government is only witch hunting them? That is one. Two, most of these organizations tend to be the ones that are critical, that engage in the political work. Yeah. And they say that this still points to the same thing, that if they opted to only do things to do with education, health, and these are aspects where government isn't criticized as much, they wouldn't be punished. And then finally, we know that the former Minister of Foreign Affairs runs an NGO in this country. That NGO received money from Mr. Patrick Hall, who has since been convicted by a court in the US. The charge was money laundering. He was convicted, he appealed, and the conviction was held. If you ask any lawyer, that shows that there is no smoke without fire in that particular case. This should have been something perhaps the NGO Bureau should have picked, or the police in Uganda, or the authorities, by whatever name called. But none of them have gone to Sam Kutesa or his NGO. And we see that they are going more to NGOs like Greece, Action Aid, Chapter 4, and these other NGOs. Do you still think that really the government's case that they're not rechanting particular NGOs holds water? Thank you, Anderson.
Sure. I wanted to categorically make it clear that even if I am working with the government, the position or the ideas I'm sharing here is not a position of government, but I'm giving you my overview, being a supervisor of some of these organizations. I have on my desk about 7 files of NGOs that have come for renewal, but they don't have offices. I have, I think, about 2 or 1 file at the same time of NGOs I have asked to file their returns and what, and they have never come back for almost a year. So I think it is either Mushambo, it should be, when I raised the issue that not everyone is an angel, we should accept. On whether who is doing what, I think either government or no NGOs should have liberty to do what is wrong. And I remember in my submission, I tasked the NGO board to, it should have done a better job in the first place. Follow the law for which it is under, it is constituted, but also if companies have not, organizations or NGOs or CSOs have not followed what is enshrined within the law, I think there are parameters through which they should have done it. NGOs, you see, government and the, its relations with some things, it is for a fact, and I will say it without fear of favor. Government, like any human being, it has friendly forces, but also it has enemies. Before it goes for a friendly force, it will first go for the enemy, because governments survive like anything. They survive. They can collapse, they can fall, anything can happen. So in its survival, and these are facts that I want you to take clearly. I am speaking this as an individual, not as a position of government. Anyone who I'll first come for you in my best way of thinking. Now, chapter 4, Greece, for example, if you want to allege this, that it is a witch hunt, what is LSA an anti-government organization? Leadership Square Africa. I subscribe to it. I am a member of LSA. In 4 or 5 years, if not so, or 3 years that it has existed, I missed about 4 sittings. 4 in 3 years or 4 years. Only 4. I am a member of LSA. But if LSA has not been friendly to the regulatory body, it does not make me criminal. Actually, I don't know if I am supposed to say it, but this afternoon I am meeting with the leaders of LSA for us to ask ourselves what went wrong, because I'm a member. I know some of these organizations that were blacklisted. Godwin is my friend. Nicholas Opio is my friend. Most of them are my friends. But in nature, if they have done what is not within the conformity of the law. You see, there are so many laws that are, broken every day here, but it depends on how you relate with the regulators. So what we want us to escalate here is that let no one be lied to that the relationship between NGOs and government is not important. It is important. But also, when you are raising your concerns as an NGO, how raise these concerns? Do you raise it in the spirit of relationship, or you raise it in the spirit of aggression? In as much as you're doing your job, in as much as you're raising whatever you are raising, we must agree that how you do what you are doing matters. Whether you love government or not, governments will change. There could be even a government that comes and it abolishes all NGOs. It is possible, and it has happened before here. So the relationship between the government and NGOs is so important, and it must not be seen as if there is a struggle between both parties, that the battle between NGOs and the government is like one of a rat and the mouse. I think that is wrong, and that is where Amanyire, I want Amanyire to, I don't know if I am getting him right. Oh, not, yes, Amanyire. If Amanyire thinks that the government can't live without NGOs and NGOs can't live without, I think it is wrong. And where I want us to critically look at and discuss Godwin and CCG, how do we improve the relationship between the government and NGOs? How do we appreciate the work of government and NGOs? It is important. And I think it is what can make NGOs thrive. I have so many young people and friends who are working with the Greece. They are doing well, they are improving, they are working on their career, they are improving their knowledge, they are providing alternatives. And I think that is important. But if Greece and the government have no relationship, what civic space is there for us to protect? Because civility in itself is the ability for people to coexist. It is the ability for different parties to work. It is the ability to create space for each and everyone to enjoy. But if you want to create space where you yourself, you enjoy whatever you want at the expense of others, I think there we are not building a civic space. So what we should focus on, yes, what has been done, and we are talking about it. But what is critical, that these things should not be done again? What is critical, that Godwin, you and I, we shall have a research paper to discuss on this platform, as opposed to us discussing problems, relationships, but not alternatives. So for that to happen, I think we shall have to chart a way of what went wrong, who is not doing what right. When we look for who is wrong, and we are trying to commit, we are trying to, I don't know the legal word they use, but we are trying to look for someone to commit. And in response, this person will have every reason to also say, I am also right, or I have an advantage over you. And in the struggle to get for who to commit, so many people are affected. So many young people who are employed now in this organization are at stake. The funding that has been coming to these organizations, where even these organizations are paying taxes, are at stake. But we are still looking for how do we massage our egos. We are looking for who is right and who is wrong, instead of looking for how best do you resolve this. And In that struggle, if we take too much time doing what is minor, if we start measuring in the minors, we are going to end up spending a lot of time. We are going to end up pushing so many people out of their pathways to breadwinning, and it shall stifle the growth of research, of community empowerment, of community building, of capacity building, like Zawedde was saying, of skills building, of awareness. And that is important, more important than the ego of these organizations and the government. Because these people can fight and fight, but at the end of the day, who is the beneficiary of the fight? The beneficiary will be the ego. I want you. I want this. I can show you how much I can go. Or the other party also, I am not wrong. I can use other alternative. Meanwhile, people are missing out on the content that these two could have been producing. So as we discuss this, CCG, all these other partners, we should open our minds and go for an arbitration. We go for a way that brings us together, as opposed to saying that we go for proving who is stronger.
Anderson.
Who is for and who is not.
Anderson, there's a session, the last part of the last segment of questions is going to ask for that. The last segment of questions, I'll ask you just to tell us. So I'm going to get back to you. Let me first move to Zawedde, who has been listening very patiently. Zawedde, Kalishiwete Charlie Nafe, watulagiridde engeri obutongole okugezaako okuyamba n'abakazi abalala era saidi ze Wandegeya. Kati njagala okumanya omuliro otya oba kijja kuba kitya nga zonna ziyimiriziddwa nga sikuddamu kukola, kibakosa batya nga abakyala ababeere Wandegeya nga tezisobola kukola mirimu gyabwe?
Neyanziza nnyo minisita. Kijja tukola bubi kubanga emabegako awo baagenda ne baggala NGO. Bannange amagulu gaffe gaatemebwako kuba twali ku sipiidi ya yiriyiri. Twekolamu omulimu kuba batusomesa okukola zi cooperative ne tuzikola, naye twawulira ennaku byali tebikyatambula bulungi nga tetulina be twebuuzaako nga babaggadde. Naye mu butuufu bwe bagamba okuggala NGOs baba batutemyeko amagulu nga bw'okiwulidde bwe nkyogedde, kubanga tukulaakulana kati. Olubereberye twali tetukulaakulana, naye kati tukola ebintu nga tuli basanyufu, nga tulina abatubuulirira, tulina abatuyambako. Obutabanguko mu maka bubadde bukendedde kubanga nga tulina ab'amateeka bakwasisa amateeka nga FIDA nga bajja ne batusomesa. Bwe bamala otusomesa ne tussa mu nkola. N'ekirala tubadde nga tokyawulirayo nnyo nti abaana bafunye embuto kuba wabaddengawo emisomo egigenda mu maaso nga tuyambibwako ebitongole ebyo. Abaana nga babo beekuuma, abaana nga bamanya ekyokukola. Mu butuufu tuba tukosebbwa nnyo nga ffe abantu ba wansi okuviira ddala ku street ne mu kyalo. Na KCCA ebadde tugenda tuteesa nayo mpola kubanga batusobozesa basisinkana ne twogera nako ebituluma. Kati tubadde nayo tutuuse nayo ku nzikiriziganya nga bagenda tuteerawo license tusobole okusasula, naye bwe tuwulira ebintu ebyo nga bigenda mu maaso nabo muli ate bayimusa amaanyi agatugobaganya okutujja ku nguudo, ate nga tubadde twagala tuveeko mpola kuba tutandiseewo n'empenda ez'okuyiiya okuteekawo obutale nga tuyambibwako gavumenti tusobole abatembeeyi okuva ku makubo. Mu butuufu tuba tutemeddwako nnyo era kitukwatako nnyo. Aba NGOs abo nga bamasa Steven babadde bafaayo nnyo okukumaakuma abatembeeyi okuva mu Plavo. Abantu ab'enjawulo tufulumirako mu mawulire ne tweyogerako nga tuyambibwako ab'amawulire, okugeza nga mukyala Lita Mukasa N'ennaku zino nga bbiri emabega twafulumiddeko mu mawulire nga turaisinga ensonga zaffe nga gavumenti naye etuwuliriza nga n'omuntu omulala asobola okulaba omutembeeyi oba omukyalo ow'omukyalo ali mu mbeera ki. Mu butuufu liba ddibu ddene nnyo era kiba kitumazeemu amaanyi era kiba kitukosezza nnyo okuyimiriza NGOs. Nze nsaba bwe nti eri gavumenti basobola okunoonyereza NGOs ezikola obulungi n'endala ne basobola oziteekateeka ne zikola emirimu gyazo kubanga gavumenti NGOs ezo ziyambako gavumenti okutuuka ku muntu owa wansi gavumenti weba tesobodde netuusaako obubaka. Ekintu ekyo kitukwateko nnyo era Mr. Okello mukubira omulanga munnange lowooza ku muntu wa wansi mulowooze ku muntu wa wansi mu butuufu. NGOs ezo be bantu abavuddeyo gye tuli ne tuyiga okukulaakulana mu butuufu tubadde tutandise okukulaakulana mu ngeri ya speed kubanga tuweebwa amagezi okuva mu bo tufuna emisomo egy'enjawulo okuva mu bo tufuna buli kimu obuyambi. Waliwo abantu abaliko obulemu bafuna obuyambi okuva mu NGOs ne basobola obasapootinga. Tubalaba abamu tebalina mikono tebalina magulu bakiggala bamuzibe bakasiru. Mu butuufu ekintu ekyo kiba kitukosezza nnyo nga abantu ba wansi. Naye nsaba gavumenti ekwataganize wamu ne NGOs balabe engeri gye bayinza okukolamu ekintu ekyo okuzuula abatuufu n'okuzuula abakyamu. Kyekintu kye mbadde nteesa nga nze Zawedde akulembera abakyala abatembeeyi. Ssebo owulidde?
Nkudde bulungi maama. Nkudde bulungi maama. Byogedde byonna bikuli. Kale. Mr. Amanyisa, I want to come back to you now with your second last question. So for me, at this point in time, Anderson says they are not witch hunting any particular NGOs. He says, but if you approach the government in the wrong way, you don't expect a cup of coffee. The government can fight back. So do you think it's time for NGOs, especially the ones engaged in the field of civil and political rights, to go back to the drawing board, review their modus operandi, and then get a way that they can engage the government more fairly, without being militant, without being hard, without being so and that as well. So Amanyisa, that is your question.
Allow me, before coming to your question, allow me to first inform my brother Anderson that we can't be partners when you people in the government don't need us. We can't be partners in a situation where the state is repressing us and using its machinery to bring us down. No. We can't be partners. Unless you want to tell me you have a different definition of a partner. We need, I think what we need to do as regards to that, the government needs to avoid being moved by emotions, especially when they are handling such critical issues. If a certain NGO in an area B or C has not complied, how do we go about it? What does the law say? Should go with the fact that the NGO Bureau does not understand the law. Where did they go wrong? Was that statement a solution to the challenge that was in place? If yes, why are they implementing something they don't know? Let me stop there, but getting back to your question. Of course, we must understand, appreciate that NGOs and CSOs are directly and indirectly benefiting Ugandans. They have been helpful in improving service delivery, in education, health. For example, here in Mushambo, the CSO community has moved mountains. We have worked with communities to arrest thieves, as in the community wants us, WACSOF to go and arrest someone who has been someone who has been seen red-handed stealing government money. Now, if we keep quiet and fold hands on our chests and say we are not going to speak, we are not going to work because we are injuring someone in a press beat, where does that end? Which direction are we taking? The NGO sector is playing a critical role. We have seen it do a lot in democratic and development processes. We have seen them put in place. We have seen the NGO sector move big things, both at regional and national level. So putting in place unfair and NGO roles, arbitrary inspections, harassment, criminalization of all strike at roots of civic space. I think by taking this direction, the government is tiding away from democracy. Now what happens to the grass? There is a saying that when two elephants are fighting, the grass suffers most. We have the grass, the local people here on ground. We have a big population of people losing. The government is also losing. I've seen someone try to avoid that. You're also missing a point. Let's say we have kept quiet and all the money, all the funds are being stolen. Don't you lose? Don't we all lose together? I think we need to come to the fact that the civil society is an essential ingredient, of development. Civil society is an essential building block of development and national cohesion. And I think we have done that in different parts of the country, in our engagements. Taking an example, let me take you in this direction. In a country, let's say a country is peaceful and it is blessed with peace and stability. Civil society comes in to fill the space untouched by government and the private sector. And when you go to a fragile country or another area that is conflict-ridden, civil society plays an even more important role of providing services, normally the responsibility of the state and business, and can lay the foundation, by the way, for reconciliation. Every state needs civil society. Every government needs civil society. I also want to inform this discussion that there are civil society organizations are an important source of information for both citizens and government. We have seen people come here to ask for information. They are like, so-and-so, can we get this? We would like to know what is happening in the municipality. We would like to know what is happening in the district. And by working with them, we also get information from them. We have monitored government policies together with the district leaders, and actions have been taken. The corrupt officials in the government have been held accountable. Funds have been recovered. We have also engaged in advocacy, and we have offered alternative policies for government and the private sector here. I'm just taking it by the horns. We throughout the country, the NGOs and CSOs deliver services, especially to the poor and the undeserved. They defend citizen rights and work to change and uphold social norms and behaviors. At least we all know that. Imagine a country where all these benefits are not at play. It means people will lack information. It means money will be stolen. It means people will not know their rights. It means many things are going to happen without anyone's watch. And what happens at the end? By the way, what happens if the government keep narrowing all these channels and people are not expressing themselves? We are going to suffocate, and the end result is going to be bad. Thank you, my brother Godwin.
Mr. Amanyisa, before you go, that means that it's your position that the NGOs shouldn't back down, they shouldn't be coward, they should continue doing what they are doing, and they should do it just as they are doing right now.
Sorry?
Is your position that NGOs shouldn't change? They should continue what they are doing, they should continue along the same trajectory, with the same force, the same vigor, and it's the government that should back down. Is that your position?
Of course, we are not saying that there shouldn't be compliance. We are not. Neither are we saying that the government should not do its work. We, like my brother was saying, we must work hand in hand. We must work together. We must look for ways of working together because we are partners. We are helping government. Government is also helping us. We have seen the IGG send us to Isinja to do some work. We are helping each other. So I call for cordial relationships. I call for improvement in the way we communicate and in the way we implement policies. Otherwise, we shall crash. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me move to Mr. Mushambo for his second last question. So, Mr. Mushambo, I'll ask you the same question. Under the current circumstances, the government will never say that they are witch hunting some NGOs that are doing political work, but the evidence seems to suggest that that is just the case. So, do you advise NGOs like Chapter 4, like Greece and others, to back off government work or to go under? Of course, there are Anderson mentioned Leadership Square Africa. There will be some, I mean, even if the government were to hand on the NGOs that are very political, they would at least add their one or two to mix up the water. So you take a similar view as Mr. Amanyisa took, or you think that, well, maybe we should consider going down, we shouldn't be very hard. We can let the government get away with some things here and there. Is that your view, sir?
Well, Godwin, compliance does not mean that we are letting government go away with some things. No. And you see that is the problem with the mindsets of some Ugandans. People take compliance to be a sort of you are weak, you are just there. For me, I continue to encourage, and for us, this has been our position as Youthline Forum. We encourage people to comply by the laws, regardless of where you are, which side you are. It is important for you to comply. It is important for non-government organizations, CSOs, to comply with the laws as provided for, and it is also important for the regulator to be mindful of the same laws that they are trying to use to supervise these non-government organizations. A relationship, just like Anderson said, a relationship between the NGOs and the regulator is very important, and we cannot do away with it. It is important that we continually look up to building a relationship with each other without coming out only to call each other names. It is important, and for us, we are ready all the time. When we are called upon, we are ready for things like dialogue, and even I can tell you categorically that before the NGO came to us as Youthline Forum, we went to them and we told them, for us, we need your guidance. We need you to work closely with us in guiding us in whatever it is. We also can be of help. We can guide you, and for us, that is it is on record, and that is our route of resolving the matter. So I want to tell civil society out there and our audience that the NGO Bureau has a mandate to fulfill. If they're not going to sit behind and not fulfill that mandate, they have a mandate to fulfill, they're going to fulfill it. However, we challenge them. We challenge them on ensuring that in whatever way they fulfill their mandate, they should fulfill it in the required and stipulated modus operandi. It is not upon them to do how they want to do. The laws are clear, the provisions are very clear, and those provisions have a leading on how they need to regulate. first they need to put together the mess in the house, deal with incompetencies, deal with the rush into identifying NGOs to close and all. They need to first deal with that. They need to deal with the mod. They need to accept. They need to be a little more receptive to allow an engagement between them and the NGOs in question, so that you see, because it facilitates the relationship. You need to give notice because it is provided for in the law. 30 days notice is provided for in the law. Give them notice, say this is what we have realized the period. Then, you know, you do what the law requires you to do. But even as we speak right now, there are NGOs that do not have letters, but they have seen themselves on social media. I pity those who are not able to access social media. There might be someone who has not been on social media and they don't know their organization has been suspended or has been halted. You know, so the Bureau and the NGO society need to improve on the manner in which they work because it bridges a better relationship. Over to you, moderator.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mushambo. Let's move to Anderson Herbert, who is going to give us his second last. I'll come back with a round of conclusion. So, Anderson, what should the NGOs do? What should be the way forward? What should
Godwin, your volume is very low. I don't know if it is on my side, but we cannot hear you.
Okay, I hope you hear me now. I've been trying to use earphones and maybe that's why I was low. So I want to ask Anderson Burora, you've said it's time to move forward. It's time for creating a path the NGOs and government learn from this particular closure. You've had the NGOs accusing it of not following protocol, but you've also had the NGO Bureau side saying that these NGOs are not following the procedures that they should follow as far as compliance is concerned. So what should both parties learn? What should they pick as lessons from here going forward?
A while ago, there was a move of a dialogue that was being fronted by some NGOs, including Greece. You see the dialogue we thought government needed as a country. We realized that the NGOs should first push for dialogue as it had presented their ideas then. Let it first create dialogue with it and government. And if we get a lesson from that, we will have every reason to come up and respect the ideas. I have read somewhere some sarcastic posts whereby that a conflict resolution conference has been shifted because of the disagreement of where the disagreements on the venue. If NGOs are custodians of rights, freedoms, dialogues, arbitration, this and that, it is at a test now to exhibit what it has been telling the people to exercise. It is time now for NGOs to walk the talk. If it can't talk the talk and it is now going for aggression and violence, then this shows that actually we have all for this long been having wrong company with us. So at this particular moment, everything that has been taught and by NGOs to the people, it is the same situation NGOs are in. How do they get out of it? You have been talking about conflict resolution. You have been talking about peace, preaching against domestic violence. You have been trying to create harmony within communities. But at a moment when the test is in your yard, you cannot come out to do the same, but you are sending responsibility away from you. And this is where we need to understand that it is always okay until it is you. You have always told the people it is okay, now it is you. Can we still say it is okay? It is biting to say. Of course, what I'm saying is so something uncouth, maybe that is not good to be said, but I think it is a great insight at the moment, critical one to take into account. So I urge you, Greece chapter 4, to come out and exercise all this has been telling people to exercise. We want to see NGOs come afloat through these similar measures and advise, cognizant of the past that relationships can always have hiccups. So if when it is you are up in arms and it's us versus them, it renders you incapable. Actually, it makes you lose the moral authority to arbitrate and teach mindset. The mindset of NGOs also is wanting. And it shows that they are not even in position to come up to the expectations. Because right now we should be having a critical paper to discuss about NGOs, critical, but it has put its work aside and it is also emotional, operating and talking and discussing. So these NGOs, my brother Amanyisa, I don't know, I keep missing your name, but I think you get it. You are at test. And I think it comes at the right time. Sit down, think critically, look within your objectives, look within your visions, look within your goals, and find out how does this apply to you as NGOs and organizations. Before you accuse the government of being emotional in response, but you are being emotional at the same time. You're trying to make yourself clean, but that is not the case. The case is you are at test. And I think you must pass this test. If you don't, some of us are watching. And actually we are waiting for you to fail on this. And we really want you to fail, by the way. We want you to fail because for long, you have made yourselves masters of everything. You have made papers on how government can politically shift or change. You have made papers for opposition to host government. You have made papers for several recommendations. We want your paper now on yourself. We want your paper that can protect even future NGOs that are to come. Because we know all our NGOs here don't last. They are individual NGOs. Once one leaves, the NGO leaves the ground. The funding is sought for individually, not even on merit. We all know this, that NGOs here, people lobby individually as people, but not as the capacity of NGOs. So many people, so many NGOs that have capacity actually to do even great work cannot get funding because they don't have connection. You also survive on connections, like you accuse others. This is the time that you must live to the expectations. This is the time we must now see the priests told the people to wait on the grace of God to respond. Now they are in the same position that they need the similar period to wait. Can they, or they will rush out to find their way out? So I am personally not moved, but I am watching. I really love to work within challenges. I really love to work where I am challenged. So Mr. NGOs and Mrs. NGOs, we are waiting, we are looking. This is the time for you to get out of this conflict. You have been teaching people how to get out of conflict, conflict management and resolution. You are all about public civic space. Where is your civility now? We also want your civility on how you get out of challenges as organizations. If not all these have not been answered, I personally, I am watching and I will critique, I will talk about this, whether it is government, whether it is NGOs, whether it is some big person, we shall raise questions. So don't sit and say we should not raise questions. And on the side of government, I have said, I gave you my position on that. I thought it could have been done somehow else, but in the event that it has not, how do we deal with it? Come up, think, give us your ideas. Stop rushing to the conclusion. Stop rushing into defensive. No. We want now to know how you yourselves get out of conflict. How do you resolve your conflict? If you come up with arms, those you have been teaching tomorrow will say, but you also you failed on this. The moral authority is at stake for you to go back to community where you have failed to resolve your own issue. Don't call everyone. Now you have started mobilizing beneficiaries to come. Yes, everyone is a beneficiary. I am a beneficiary. I attribute some of my thinking to LSA. You know, I am a beneficiary as well, but that does not take away the fact that their demands, their audits, their questions being raised towards you. And if we don't look it into that perspective, we shall end up making it sound as if the us versus them is a good idea to follow. And that idea is dead on arrival. It will not make sense. So I task each of you, whoever is involved, well-wishers, including myself, to come up with ideas, because conflict is a contradiction, is as a result of contradiction. You have contradictions that will bring more contradictions, and that it won't stop. So stop going on the offensive or defensive and say, I'm right, this is wrong. Come up with papers on how you have been resolving conflicts in communities, in the families, economically, socially. How can you fail of you? Because the organizations are not so many than the challenges in the community. So sit down, lay your bed, and sleep in it.
Anderson, thank you very much. Before you go, just make your concluding remarks in a minute, and then we move to the other panelists to also make their concluding remarks. Your final words.
Yeah, my final word is, let's get out of this stronger. We need these civic spaces. It is for a fact. We need them. We need NGOs because they are an extension of community. They understand data because their work is minimal, so they can exactly reach challenges directly. So we need them. We need the players to get involved. But we shall not move if we don't reach up to the standards that are expected. Let's learn to condemn our own. NGOs should be in a position to condemn those NGOs that are overstepping their mandates or that are crossing boundaries. Solidarity also involves criticism. You must be in solidarity with your colleagues, but you should be also in a position to criticize them, to tell them what is wrong and what is right, but also to audit them as well, because the results of them come to the entire sector, come to the institutions. And now that's how you end up being branded as one, as if all NGOs. We have 50, I think we have more than 20,000 registered NGOs in this country. But we see that the 54 unlisted makes it look as if all the 20,000 are all wrong. And if we don't come to that point where we touch on our own, where we wash the wounds of our own, we shall all continuously rot And at the end of the day, the tag will be on all and not few. So create room of criticism, create a room where you condemn your own, and also accept that where audit is required, where some red flags, there is no smoke without fire. If we went into all this, you realize that whoever is wholesomely speaking, if we opened them inside, it is rotting. No one is beyond reproach. So I thank you for this space and for this time. I hope next time we shall have more discussions on the same.
Thank you very much, Anderson. Anderson is the deputy RCC of Nakawa and a very good friend of CCG. Let's move now to Mr. Amanyisa. Amanyisa, I'm going to give you a minute to make your concluding remarks.
Thank you, my brother Godwin, for moderating this beautiful discussion. It is so interesting having a partner who wants you to, who is waiting for your downfall. Very interesting. My brother Anderson, I hope you're not speaking for anyone, even when you are using we. Even when you're using we, a pronoun of the first person plural. But my final submission is that this test, like my brother calls it, does not mean that we keep quiet or pack our bags. A big no, we cannot quit, we cannot call it quits, we cannot pack our bags and leave. Because this should instead re-energize us to do more despite the magnitude of repression. We must stand and do that which we are called to do. I want to remind every one of us that this is a mission, this is a purpose, we are here serving a purpose. And I am telling you that the day we relax and let things be, we shall be no more. We must claim our space, and of course we shall not continue to be denied or keep in denial. But our constant resistance will cause an impact at the end of the day. We must keep here and work towards a generation of more proactive, coherent, and coordinated approaches to civic space. Thank you everyone for engaging in this discussion. Thank you, Godwin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manyisa. Let's move Mr. Mushambo, and we shall conclude with Zawedde. So Mr. Mushambo, your concluding remarks in a minute.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Godwin. I want to thank each of the panelists for making their time. However, just as we conclude, the very able RCC and his record is it is non-challenged in terms of fulfilling his duties. At least I work and reside around his area of operation, and I have seen him do his work, and I can say it is very commendable. However, when he says that he prays very much that some of these NGOs fail, I know as a cadre, I know that he does not say it as a government official, but that is just his opinion, his personal opinion. Because I have seen him work as a government official and he's very spot on. But when it comes to personal opinions, then maybe that can be associated with his personal opinion. My closing remarks are very simple. Like I earlier said, we all have a responsibility to fulfill. And on the side of Youthland Forum, we are committed to dialogue, we are committed to compliance. I have said this very many times, I continue to say it everywhere I go, that compliance is an important segment, is an important body of our work. Accountability also is an important segment of our work, and we need to work hard towards improving those areas. And that is it to the non-government organizations. And to the NGO Bureau, the regulator of the non-government organizations. Actually, for you, you even have a bigger challenge, because it is your responsibility to watch over these NGOs. It is your responsibility to sensitize those who do not know about the NGO Act Because for us, we made the study and we realized that people are actually out there and they exactly do not understand what they have to do for them to be compliant. And so the NGO Bureau has a bigger responsibility in ensuring that NGOs comply. And it is not supposed, and I don't think it is in its place only to come up when it is holding the stick. It needs to come up with a copy, with a cup of coffee, sit down with the NGOs that are in question, and be able to dialogue, speak to us, speak to these people. When people go wrong, you know, they need a chance, you know. So it is not about you holding the stick all the time. It is important to sit down with the NGO bureaus. Otherwise, we need to strongly work on our relationship. The laws are very clear, and those laws can facilitate that relationship. We should not ignore. None of the parties should ignore that matter. All of us are very pertinent in this. We need each other. Government needs NGOs, as NGOs need the government. Period. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mushambo. Let's get our final comment from Zawedde. Mama Zawedde, mbadde nsaba otuwulire ebigambo ebisembayo.
Neyanziza okusookera ddala neebaza.
Okay, looks like we've lost Zawedde, but I want to again thank the panelists. You made very impressive submissions today. And for our dear viewers, thank you for always tuning in to Safe Space TV. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'm sure that you're going to find content the kind that you like, this discussion and many others. We also have other programs. There's one for the youth, there's one for the ladies, and all these other groups. Please always endeavor to subscribe and follow us as we keep you posted what's going on in the country. So for today's discussion, thank you again for viewing. Thank you, the panel, and I'll end it right here. Thank you very much.